It is apparently probable that the Bank of England will launch a digital currency. They're dubbing it Britcoin, which is kind of fun. Not as fun as the fact that they're just putting out another government fiat, a CBDC. So in a speech on Thursday, Sir John Cunliffe, who's the Deputy Governor for Financial Stability, says it's probable that the state would need to issue some form of digital cash to retain citizens' confidence in the availability of public money, which is a very interesting way to couch this. He said some other things which I think we can dive into, but I'll throw this straight to the group. Will, what are your thoughts on all of these CBDCs being released and announced and the UK jumping on board?
Yeah, say that 10 times fast, right? CBDC.
Yeah, no.
No, don't do it. We've gone over the topic a few times on the show, and like my stance always is just CBDCs kind of leverage an existing technology which is better suited for a decentralized network like Bitcoin, and it's trying to put it in the hands of government for its own interests and purposes. And to a degree, I think there could be a world where Bitcoin and CBDCs actually kind of coexist well. It just depends on how these things are created and architectured in the beginning. I think that CBDCs could actually kind of end up providing a lot more liquidity to Bitcoin because people are going to be naturally onboarded into the crypto space. They're going to have to learn how to use a crypto wallet. They're going to have to be familiar with like putting your private key away and what your looks like and how to interact with addresses and whatnot. And that necessarily brings people into Bitcoin. And if you just like look at one side of the chart and the other side, Bitcoin, CBDCs, it's very clear which one has more beneficial properties. The only difference everyone gets caught up on is that Bitcoin's price is very volatile and CBDCs are pegged to whatever the currency rate is. So £1 sterling or whatnot, or $1. And I think over time, as we see Bitcoin increase in price, and then I think it's going to level out in the future, that argument starts to dissipate, and then we just kind of get into this world where we have Bitcoin, we have CBDCs, we have Ether, we have DAI, we have all these different kind of coins that you can interact with as assets. So I'm not super surprised. I think it's going to be a while. I think that I would be interested to get Ben's take on the privacy aspects here. Of course, there's been a lot of reporting on the subject, but it's never quite clear what these central banks are actually emphasizing at a given time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I actually want to call attention to a new column from our new Chief Insights columnist, David Morris, who wrote about the colonial pipeline hack in the sense of CBDCs sort of being the money pipeline and what are the vulnerabilities there. Like, you know, I've mentioned previously that like zero knowledge proofs are in discussions with some of these CBDCs. We've seen some thinking about incorporating, you know, distributed ledger technology, DLT for short, and other maybe private blockchains and stuff like that. That being said, like, you know, David kind of focused on the fact that, you know, the ransomware hackers of the colonial pipeline in the US were just kind of focused on money. They even put out a press statement to the effect like, we're just here for the money. We are not like a geopolitical force or anything like that. And I think, you know, it kind of raised some issues around like CBDCs as well and the vulnerabilities that might exist there. If you're interested in money, you know, kind of going after a CBDC might be another appealing option for a various hacker, you know, whichever hacker group may come next in this regard. And so that just kind of, to me, brought up a kind of whole other host of concerns. Like privacy is obviously an important one. We talked about the ways the US is saying they may focus on privacy while China is maybe doing less so of that. But I think overall, like how they're incorporating security into these things is going to be another huge question, right? Like we've talked about sort of cash being used for crime a lot, maybe the most popularly transacted criminal sort of enterprise in that regard. But I'm curious about what security measures might be involved. And I think countries are going to be thinking about this, but I think also governments have shown that it's quite tricky to actually keep things secure through a variety of hacks and stuff that we've seen between SolarWinds, colonial pipelines, all these other things. So Jen, I want to toss that to you, but that was top of mind today when I read this story.
I think this is probably a pretty basic question, but Naomi, I just have to ask you, if people are losing trust in let's say the British pound, how is the CBDC going to instill that trust if it's just the same thing but digital?
That is such a good question. So Sir Cunliffe actually went on to say that these private stablecoins that have been launched, they tend to have greater functionality, lower transaction costs than current commercial bank digital money offerings, and could quickly attract a large number of users. So this is interesting, fight brewing between private money and public money. Perhaps if cryptocurrency can bring down transaction costs, it might help them compete. But currently, they're really recognizing that the private sector has come out with better products. So good luck to them. I'm not sure how I'm going to hold my breath.